Hello guys, my name is Nick and this is Crime Dog. Do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel and we will love you forever. We are not messing about this week, let's get straight into it. When a mother and daughter go missing on Bastille Day, the whole town comes together to look for them. Everyone except the man of the house. This is the case of Francisco Benitez. Roll the intro. The Benitez family live in Perpignan in the southwest of France. The dad, Francisco, originally from Spain, is a chief warrant officer in the Foreign Legion. He's married to Marie-José. They met in 1988 when she was working as a barmaid in Marseille. Everything started off great. He was great stability for her, with already 4 kids from 4 different relationships. They have one daughter together, Allison, an attractive girl learning to be a hairdresser, but with dreams of competing in beauty contests and becoming Miss Roussillon, a regional version of the Miss France beauty pageant. The family arrived in Perpignan in 2010. They were forced to move around a lot due to Benitez's job, making it difficult for Allison to make friends. For those who don't know, the Foreign Legion is a corps of the French army, made up of airborne troops, cavalry, engineers, and infantry. They are highly trained soldiers, and the unique thing about the Legion is that it's open to non-French recruits willing to serve under the French army. From the outside, they look like the perfect family. Allison is very close to her mum. She confides in her all the time. She's also very tight with her dad. He looks after her and often attends her rehearsals and castings. Benitez is well respected by friends and colleagues. By all accounts, he is an excellent legionnaire, a man with a good sense of humour and a joy for life. At the beginning of the summer in 2013, Allison is already dreaming of becoming Miss Roussillon. Fully supported by her parents, she decides to quit her hairdressing job to commit 100% to the beauty pageant. On the 14th of July 2013, Allison is in Canet, a small beach town close to her home, for Miss rehearsals. She meets there often to practice and to get ready for the big event. Late that afternoon, her dad comes by to pick her up. Witnesses see Allison get into the car with her dad. That was the last time anyone saw her. On the same day, Benitez's wife, Marie-José, sends a bizarre text message to one of her daughters from a previous relationship, Lydia, saying she was moving to Toulouse. J'ai pris une décision difficile, mais c'est mieux comme ça. Je pars à Toulouse avec Allison. Je vous aime. Appelle papa. So according to this message, Marie-José and daughter Allison, out of nowhere, have decided to leave town and move to Toulouse. The following evening, Allison has a meeting with the other girls at 7:30 p.m. And sure enough, there is no sign of Allison. Cindy Filipiak, head of the Miss Roussillon committee, is deeply concerned when she doesn't show up. She would never miss a rehearsal, it means way too much to her. Cindy asks Allison's best friend Alexandra to go round to her house to try and find out what's going on. So he goes round on the morning of the 16th. Benitez is there, and he tells Alexandra that they are fine. Her and her mum have gone to Toulouse and they've turned off their phones. Alexandra conveys this message to Cindy, who says straight away, something is wrong here. Marie-José wouldn't just up and leave like that. She had 4 other children that she wouldn't just abandon to move to Toulouse. They tried to get hold of them, but like Benitez says, both their phones are off. Allison usually posts constantly on Twitter and Facebook, but there's been no sign of her since July the 13th. Benitez himself doesn't seem too concerned. He has contacts in the police and in the army, but doesn't try and get hold of anyone to speed up the search for his wife and daughter. He tells friends that Allison wanted to work in Toulouse, but to them this doesn't make any sense. She was obsessed with her Miss Roussillon competition and never even mentioned moving away. It's not until the 22nd of July, with no news from the mother and daughter, we're talking 8 days after their supposed departure for Toulouse, Benitez finally goes to the police station with his stepdaughter Lydia. However, he stays there no more than 10 minutes. And police are not overly concerned either. Given the circumstances with the text message sent to Lydia, all they do is file a report. We're talking about 2 adults here, and they have no reason to believe anything untoward has happened to them. It's not until the 25th of July, when Benitez goes back to the police station, that this case really starts to heat up. He claims to have had a massive argument with his wife on the 14th, and states that she left with Allison at around 5 PM. According to Benitez, the couple would argue on a regular basis, and she would often disappear for a few days before coming back. He still appears not particularly concerned for their well-being, despite no one being able to reach them by phone, no bank activity, and no social media posts. And despite there being no real evidence of foul play, investigators are starting to become a little bit suspicious of Benitez with his incredibly laid-back attitude. They check local CCTV, especially at Perpignan train station. Marie-José couldn't drive, so that was really the only way that they would have left town. But there's no sign of them. Friends and family are convinced that something is very wrong, and they are way more proactive in their approach. They stick up posters all over Perpignan, and they invite the media to get involved with the effort. On the 30th of July, a kidnapping alert is broadcast on TV. The mother and daughter have now essentially been missing for 16 days. All this time, Marie-José's family have no idea what's going on. The first they hear about it is when they hear the alert on TV. Marie-José's brother Eric immediately calls Benitez and asks him what the hell's going on. He tells Eric exactly what he told police, that they had an argument and she left the house and they've gone to Toulouse. He asks, "Why didn't you call me to let me know what's happening?" Benitez's excuse is he didn't want to worry them for no reason. On the 1st of August, in the presence of Benitez, 8 officers and 2 local prosecutors search the family home for over 5 hours. The house is spotless, except for one room, the office, which is a complete mess. In the office, they find Allison and Marie-José's passports, so they couldn't have gone very far. Despite a thorough search, they don't find anything else suspicious. Marie-José's brother Eric travels to Perpignan himself on the 3rd of August to speak to police. And on the 4th, he goes to see Benitez, who is in a bad way. He is crying constantly and seems to be struggling to deal with all the media attention and suspicions about him from people around him. Eric leaves Benitez at around 6 PM that evening, promising to meet up with him the next morning. But the Legionnaire's evening is far from over. That night, he meets up with a journalist and gives him a video recording, telling her she can only publish it after a certain date. Later that Sunday night at approximately 11 PM, a neighbor spots him leaving his home. She isn't to know, but she is the last person to see him alive. In the early hours of the next morning, a fellow Legionnaire finds Francisco Benitez hanging in the barracks toilets. He is dressed in full military attire and has a black veil over his head. What do we make of this act 3 weeks after the disappearance of his wife and his daughter? Did he do this out of desperation for losing his wife and his child? And on top of that, being publicly accused of being involved in their disappearance? Or is it more guilt over what he did and the fear of being found out and arrested by the police? Why cover his face? Could it be a sense of shame for what he had done? On the same day, local prosecutors hold a press conference, stating that if Allison and Marie-José were still alive and free to move around, surely they would have shown themselves now on learning of Benitez's suicide. Then, the video entrusted to the journalist is released.
Bonjour à tout le monde, là, je suis le papa d'Allison. Avant tout, je tiens à remercier tous ses amis et tous les gens près de nous qui se sont mobilisés pour sa recherche. Pendant 3 semaines, nous suivons des choses très graves, des événements très durs à tenir. C'est pour ça que pour l'instant, on a resté dans ce silence, en attendant que la police fasse son travail. Le plus dur pour nous, ça a été de lire des choses que les gens commentaient et disent sans savoir ce qui se passe dans la vie privée des gens. Là. Nous sommes une famille comme toute autre famille, avec des hauts et des bas. Les gens qui me connaissent vraiment, là, ils savent très bien que pour moi, Allison, c'est ma vie. Mais ça, il y a seulement que les gens qui me connaissent qui peuvent savoir ça. Aujourd'hui, je suis dans l'incertitude de qu'on trouve ma fille, parce que ça fait déjà 3 semaines qu'elle est partie. Et ma fille jamais aurait fait une chose comme ça, de ne pas donner des nouvelles ni des choses comme ça, c'est impossible, je sais que c'est impossible. Pour ça aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de choses qui nous passent dans la tête, et on tient, mais c'est trop dur, on est à la limite d'exploser. Nous, on ne fait pas cette vidéo pour choquer les gens, juste pour dire aux gens qu'on est une famille normale, qu'on a un père, qu'on a des mères, qu'on a des enfants. Et ce n'est pas une histoire de légionnaire ou pas légionnaire, non, c'est une histoire de cœur. C'est une famille, c'est tout. Merci encore une fois à tous les amis pour sa mobilisation. J'espère que ma fille sera retrouvée, ainsi que sa maman. Mais si aujourd'hui, je peux dire que je ne suis pas optimiste du tout. Je vous remercie à tout le monde. Merci à tous.
Benitez seems like a beaten man and genuinely devastated. Interestingly, in the video, there is no mention of his wife at all. Why commit suicide if he had nothing to do with this? Why choose this path when your life's purpose should now be to find your wife and your daughter? He also leaves a suicide note in the barracks justifying his act. He explains in the letter that he is at his wit's end and can no longer handle the pressure put on him by the constant criticism and suspicions. It's his way to try and make it clear to his fellow legionnaires that he was not involved in any way with the disappearance of his wife and daughter. Following the press coverage of Benitez's suicide, on the 5th of August, a man sees the video of Benitez and calls the police straight away. He tells him that he recognizes him as the former lover of his ex-wife, Simone de Oliveira Alves. As far as Simone's family were concerned, in 2004, her and Benitez were a couple. They saw each other regularly, they spent weekends together, and Allison even played with her kids. The year she met Benitez, Simone had just divorced from her husband, also a legionnaire. They had met in a bar close to the Legion barracks where Simone worked as a barmaid. In her mind, Benitez is separated from Marie-José, and she's happy to present him to her family. She has no idea he is living a double life. It's not until Simone intercepts a call from Marie-José that she realizes that they're actually still together. A huge argument then ensues on the phone between the two of them, and afterwards Simone tells her family that she's going to leave Benitez. Simone then disappears on November the 29th, 2004. The day of her disappearance, she dropped her kids off with her brother Luis and told him that she was going to meet Benitez to put an end to the relationship. But no one has seen her since. The similarities here are staggering. He met both women when they were working as barmaids. They both already have 4 children. Like Marie-José, Simone had no reason to abandon her 4 kids. And get this, Simone's last contact was a text message, this time apparently sent to Benitez himself. In it she wrote, "I've had enough, I'm leaving you." It just doesn't make any sense. If you break up with someone, you don't leave your own home, especially if that person doesn't live there. At the time, Benitez was questioned as a witness, but he was never pushed hard by the police in this case. In fact, they didn't really investigate at all. She was a party girl accused of sleeping around. Police presumed she just met some guy and ran off. Her family went to the police and accused Benitez directly, but their accusations fall on deaf ears. When investigators start to link these two cases, the situation could not look more dire. Devastated by the loss of their chief suspect, police returned to the Benitez home to look for further clues. They discovered that Benitez hadn't been living at the family home for the last 8 years. The couple had been in severe difficulty for several months, maybe even years, in part due to his prolonged absences, but mainly a result of his numerous infidelities. She had in fact allegedly started divorce proceedings against Benitez. On the 11th of August, the Miss Roussillon competition goes ahead as planned at Port Baccarat, close to Perpignan. The 11 candidates all wear a green bracelet to pray for Allison, hoping she will maybe surprise everyone and show up, prove to everyone that they were worrying for nothing. She doesn't show. A month has now gone by since she was last seen. Police continue to dig into Benitez's life, and they start to interview some of his colleagues. A fellow legionnaire reveals something very troubling. He tells police that on July the 19th, 5 days after the disappearance, Benitez asked him for help moving a freezer from his home to the barracks. He explains that there was pheasant blood inside the freezer, and it required a thorough clean, which could be done much easier at the barracks. The colleague thinks nothing of it and helps him to transport the freezer, and several other legionnaires witness him cleaning it. So police send in forensics to check it out. When they find the freezer, it's sealed closed with a rope tied around it. When they open it up, it is ridiculously clean. It looks like a new freezer, except for a very small area just near the freezer fan, where they find a few traces of blood. And guess what? It's no pheasant. It's a match for Allison. There is now very little doubt that at some point Allison was in the freezer, potentially for several hours, and most definitely deceased. Through his colleagues, investigators also learn that Benitez was cleaning clothes at the barracks too. They analyzed the machine he used, and it too contains traces of blood belonging to Allison and Marie-José. They go back to the house, this time armed with equipment that can identify the tiniest traces of blood. It is clear that the house has been cleaned from head to toe with some kind of industrial style bleach. However, this time they do find blood in several rooms of the house. In a very short space of time, this case goes from a double disappearance to a double murder investigation. Any doubts have now become certitudes. It would appear Benitez murdered his wife and his daughter. The inquiry now accelerates as they try to trace Benitez's movements in an attempt to locate the bodies. The kilometer gauge on his car indicates that he drove over 5,000 kilometers in just 3 weeks. Where did he go, and why was he driving so far? And did he have the bodies in the car with him? They managed to trace his phone, and it turns out he drove to the same specific spot, around 30 kilometers from his home, several times in a row, and always in the middle of the night. On the 10th of September 2013, a specialist team, including diving squads and sniffer dogs, join the hunt. 70 skilled officers from neighbouring towns also get involved. They concentrate their search on the Port de Lucate, 30 minutes away from Perpignan. It leads them to a used wastewater treatment plant, a perfect place to dispose of a body. They search the whole area with a fine-tooth comb and find absolutely nothing. For the whole of the month of September, they search high and low, but it's in vain. However, police are convinced that they are buried out there somewhere. Not only that, on the 15th of July, so the day following the disappearance, both Benitez and Marie-José's phones light up in the area around Port Lucate. While police struggle to locate the bodies of Marie-José and her daughter Allison, they also start looking into old unsolved cases to see if they can find any other link to Benitez. We could have a serial killer on our hands here. They come across an old case which sparks their interest. Sandra Martin, a 21-year-old married mother of two, left the family home on the 8th of January at 10 p.m. after an argument with her husband. She claimed she was going to sleep in a hotel, but despite rigorous searches, she was never found. 2 months later, a fisherman finds her body in the water close to the family home. The autopsy suggests she was drowned. The husband, Patrice Martin, is prime suspect, and he's interviewed by police, but they have nothing on him. He said his wife was depressed and wanted to leave France. The inquiry lasts 8 years and is never resolved. Relatives don't believe it's an accidental drowning or suicide. Okay, what's the link to Francisco Benitez, you might ask? 2 private detectives, hired originally by the husband Patrice Martin, go to Perpignan police. A member of Sandra Martin's family knows one of Simone's sisters. What a coincidence. Maybe. No proof was ever found. Was it possible Sandra was just another of Benitez's mistresses, and she suffered a similar fate to the others? It comes to light that at the time of the Perpignan disappearances, Benitez was involved with another woman, Marie-José, who was in the north of Spain. Benitez would often go to the French consulate in Barcelona for work. There he would meet Maria-José, a 39-year-old Spanish woman, married with 2 kids, and they would start an affair. It is alleged he had another woman in Paris and 2 more in the barracks in Perpignan. In the months leading up to July the 14th, he was with several different women. Allison finds out that her dad is cheating on her mum with Maria-José. Best friend Alexandra confirms that Allison confided in him about the extramarital affairs. On the 12th of July, he spends the evening in Barcelona with Maria-José and some of her friends. He even invites her to stay in the family home on July the 19th, 5 days after the disappearance of his wife and daughter. Police find out she was the last in a long line of conquests. A psychological profile of Benitez concludes that he most likely found out that Allison was looking into his double life and his latest promiscuities in Spain. She had shared everything that she knew with her mother. He then probably lashed out. Profilers doubt that he intended to kill his daughter. He loved her and he cared for her, but he was unable to cope with them saying enough is enough, and it pushed him over the edge. This was likely the case with the other women who have mysteriously vanished. Having accidentally killed Allison, he was then obliged to kill his wife too. He was jealous, possessive, a serial liar, and unable to control himself. He had to be in charge of when things started and when things ended. To this day, Allison and Marie-José's bodies have never been discovered. Benitez was no amateur. He was trained at killing, and I imagine he would be quite proficient at getting rid of a body too. If police had known from the start of the inquiry about these other women, maybe they would have taken the disappearances of the mother and daughter more seriously. I will of course keep you updated on this case if there are any developments. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video, and if there are any other cases you would like me to look into, please let me know too. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this, and we will see you next week for some more true crime. Merci beaucoup et au revoir.